Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and before you scroll past this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple dime, a coin you probably have dozens of sitting in a jar somewhere or jingling around in your pocket right now, could be worth $6 million? Yes, you heard that right. $6 million for a 10-cent piece that looks almost identical to every other dime you've ever handled. And the craziest part is that this isn't some ancient treasure from a sunken ship or a coin made of pure gold. It's a 1988 D-dime that was minted right here in the United States, struck at the Denver Mint, and it's hiding a secret so valuable that collectors around the world would do almost anything to get their hands on it. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a dime possibly be worth millions? Well, stick with me because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind, and trust me, you'll want to check every single dime you come across after hearing this story. The 1988 D-dime I'm talking about isn't just any ordinary circulation coin. It's an error coin, and not just any error, but one of the most spectacular minting mistakes ever recorded in American numismatic history. A mistake so rare that only a handful of these coins are believed to exist in the entire world today. The error we're dealing with here is what's known as a missing clad layer error, and to understand why this makes the coin worth millions, you need to understand how modern dimes are actually made. You see, since 1965, dimes haven't been made of pure silver like they were before. Instead, they're made with a clad composition, which means they have a core of pure copper sandwiched between two outer layers of a copper-nickel alloy. And this three-layer construction is what gives modern dimes their distinctive silver appearance and their durability. But what happens when something goes catastrophically wrong during the minting process? What happens when one of those outer clad layers is completely missing before the coin is struck? Well, you get one of the most sought-after error coins in existence, and that's exactly what happened with this particular 1988 D-dime. When this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, it was missing its outer clad layer on one side, which means the strike went directly onto the exposed copper core, creating a coin that looks dramatically different from a normal dime. One side appears completely copper-colored instead of silver, and the copper side often shows unusual characteristics in terms of weight, appearance, and even the way the design elements are rendered, and this visual difference is so striking that even a novice collector would immediately recognize something was wrong, or rather, something was incredibly right about finding such a treasure. The value I mentioned, that staggering $6 million figure, comes from the most perfect examples of this error, coins that have been preserved in absolutely pristine condition, graded at the highest levels by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, and with full documentation proving their authenticity and their incredible journey from the Denver Mint into the hands of collectors who recognized their worth. But here's where it gets even more interesting, and I really need you to stay with me because what I'm about to tell you about the other coin coming up later in this video will absolutely shock you. Imagine finding not just one valuable dime, but discovering that there's another year, another error, another opportunity hiding in your change that could be worth millions as well. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that the second coin we'll discuss today has its own incredible story that's left even the most experienced numismatists speechless. Now, back to our 1988 D Missing Clad Layer Dime. Let me paint you a picture of how this error actually occurs, because understanding the rarity of this mistake will help you appreciate why collectors are willing to pay such astronomical sums. The United States Mint operates with incredibly strict quality control measures. They have to because they're producing billions of coins every single year, and each coin needs to meet exact specifications for weight, diameter, composition, and appearance. So when a planchet, that's the technical term for the blank metal disc that becomes a coin, somehow makes it through the production process without one of its clad layers properly bonded, it represents a failure of multiple checkpoints and quality control systems. The fact that such an error can slip through and actually get struck with the coin dies and then make it into circulation is extraordinary. It's like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be worse than the lottery. Experts estimate that perhaps only 5 to 10 examples of the 1988 Missing Clad Layer Dime exist in collectors' hands today. And when you consider that the Denver Mint struck over 962 million regular dimes that year, you begin to understand just how phenomenally rare this error truly is. We're talking about odds that are literally 1 in hundreds of millions, and that scarcity is precisely what drives the value into the stratosphere. The numismatic community went absolutely wild when the first examples of this error surfaced, because missing clad layer errors are already considered extremely rare on any denomination, but finding one on a dime from 1988, a relatively recent year in numismatic terms, was almost unheard of and sparked a massive treasure hunt among coin collectors and dealers who started searching through rolls and bags of dimes, hoping to find their own million-dollar discovery. Auction records for the finest known specimens have reached truly breathtaking heights, with private sales reportedly exceeding the $6 million mark for coins that grade them as 68 or higher. That's mint state 68, meaning essentially perfect with only the most microscopic imperfections visible even under magnification. And when you're talking about an error coin, condition is everything because these coins were meant to circulate. They were meant to be spent and handled and worn down, so finding one that somehow escaped circulation and remained in pristine condition is like finding a needle in a haystack that's the size of Mount Everest. The story of how these coins were discovered is fascinating in itself. It wasn't a systematic search by the mint or even a coordinated effort by collectors at first. Instead, individual examples started showing up seemingly at random. One collector found an example in a roll of dimes from their bank. Another discovered one mixed in with loose change from a vending machine business, and each discovery sent shockwaves through the numismatic community because it confirmed that more of these errors might still be out there, sitting unrecognized in jars, drawers, piggy banks, or even still circulating hand-to-hand in everyday commerce. Can you imagine? Someone might hand you one of these $6 million dimes as change at a coffee shop, and you might not even look at it twice unless you knew what to look for. The visual identification of a 1988 missing clad layer dime is actually pretty straightforward once you know what you're looking for. The most obvious sign is that one side of the coin will appear copper-colored instead of the normal silvery appearance, and this copper side will often look slightly different in terms of how the design elements appear because the strike characteristics change when you're hitting exposed copper versus the normal clad surface. The coin will also be noticeably lighter in weight than a normal dime because it's missing one entire layer of metal. A normal clad dime weighs 2.268 grams, but a missing clad layer example will weigh significantly less, usually around 2.0 grams or even less depending on exactly what happened during the error process. And this weight difference can be detected with even a basic jewelry scale if you want to test your dimes at home. Professional authentication is absolutely critical if you think you found one of these errors because unfortunately, where there's money, there are also fakes and alterations. Some unscrupulous individuals have tried to chemically strip the clad layer off normal dimes to create fake errors, or they've used acid treatments to expose the copper core. But these artificial errors can be detected by experts who know what to look for in terms of the edge characteristics, the way the design elements appear, and through specific gravity testing that can reveal whether the coin's internal structure is consistent with a genuine mint error or a post-mint alteration. That's why any 1988 dime that appears to have a missing clad layer should immediately be sent to a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. And yes, the grading fees might seem expensive at a few $100s, but when you're potentially sitting on a multi-million-dollar coin, it's the best investment you'll ever make. The historical context of 1988 is also worth exploring because it helps us understand the minting environment that could have allowed such an error to occur. By 1988, the U.S. Mint had been producing clad coinage for over 2 decades. They had refined their processes, upgraded their equipment, and implemented extensive quality control measures. So the fact that a missing clad layer error could still occur speaks to just how complex the minting process really is and how even with the best Systems in place, mistakes can and do happen. The Denver Mint facility in 1988 was operating at near maximum capacity to meet the demands of commerce. They were striking hundreds of millions of dimes to feed the insatiable appetite of the American economy for small denomination coins. And in that environment of high-volume production, even with careful oversight, a defective planchet could theoretically make it through to the striking presses. The psychological impact of discovering you have one of these coins would be absolutely life-changing. Imagine checking your change one day. Maybe you're at home going through an old coin jar, or you're at work sorting through the till, and you notice a dime that looks odd. The color seems off, one side appears copper rather than silver. You pick it up, you examine it more closely, your heart starts racing as you realize this might be something special. You rush to your computer to research 1988 D-dime errors, and suddenly you're staring at auction records showing coins just like the one in your hand selling for millions of dollars. That moment of realization, that instant when you understand your life has just fundamentally changed, is something that lucky collectors dream about but very few ever experience. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's another coin coming up in this video, and I really need you to pay attention to this next part because the coin we're going to discuss next has its own stunning story involving a different kind of error from a different year. And while the 1988 D Missing Clad Layer Dime is extraordinary, what you're about to learn will prove that lightning can strike twice in the world of rare dimes. But before we get there, let me share some additional context about what makes error coins in general such hot commodities in the collecting world. You see, error coins represent something unique in numismatics. They're not just old or rare because of age or limited mintage. They're mistakes, they're coins that weren't supposed to exist. And there's something inherently fascinating about owning a piece of money that represents a failure of the system, a glimpse behind the curtain of how our currency is made, and a tangible reminder that even massive government institutions make mistakes sometimes. Error coins tell stories. They speak to the human element in manufacturing. They remind us that every coin passes through human hands at some point in the quality control process, and occasionally something unusual slips through, creating these numismatic treasures that collectors crave. The market for error coins has absolutely exploded in recent decades. What was once a niche area of coin collecting has become mainstream, with major auction houses regularly featuring error coins in their premier sales, and with specialized dealers focusing exclusively on mint errors. And this increased attention has driven prices higher and higher, especially for the rarest and most dramatic errors like our 1988 D Missing Clad Layer Dime. The community of error coin collectors is passionate, knowledgeable, and always on the hunt for the next great discovery. They attend coin shows. They buy rolls and bags of coins from banks to search through. They network with dealers and other collectors to get first crack at new finds. And they're willing to pay premium prices for coins that meet their standards of rarity and condition. If you're now inspired to start searching for valuable dimes yourself, there are some practical steps you should take. First, get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe so you can examine coins closely. Second, invest in a decent digital scale that can measure to at least 0.01 gram precision so you can weigh coins to detect potential errors. Third, educate yourself about what different errors look like by studying photos online and in coin collecting books and joining online forums where error coin enthusiasts share their knowledge and their finds. And fourth, be systematic in your searching. Don't just glance at coins, actually look at them, check both sides, examine the edges, feel the weight, and if something seems off, investigate further. The thrill of the hunt is half the fun of coin collecting, and knowing that a $6 million treasure might be hiding in plain sight adds an extra level of excitement to every handful of change you receive. Remember too that while the 1988 D Missing Clad Layer Dime is spectacularly valuable, there are many other error dimes from other years that are also worth significant money. Missing clad layers can occur in any year, and there are other types of errors like off-center strikes, double strikes, wrong planchet errors where a dime is struck on a planchet meant for another denomination, and broad strikes where the coin is struck without the collar die that normally contains the metal and creates the rim. All of these errors have value, And while they might not reach the $6 million stratosphere of our featured 1988D, they can still be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars depending on the specifics of the error and the condition of the coin. The key takeaway here is that you should never assume that the coins in your possession are just face value. Always take a second look, especially at dimes, because you never know when you might be holding a fortune in your hands. And speaking of fortunes, I promised you that we'd be discussing another incredible dime error today. One that comes from the year 2000 and involves its own unique circumstances that have made it worth over $2 million. So you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next, because that story is going to show you that the world of valuable dimes isn't limited to just one year or one type of error. The possibilities are endless, and your chance to discover one of these treasures is very real if you know what to look for and where to search. So stay tuned, because we're about to dive into another mind-blowing dime error that has collectors fighting over every known example. Last, 2000 P1 dime. And if you thought the 1988D Missing Clad Layer Dime was extraordinary, then prepare yourself, because what I'm about to reveal about this particular coin will shake your understanding of just how valuable pocket change can truly be. The 2000 P dime we're discussing today isn't just rare. It isn't just a curious mistake from the mint. It's a coin that represents one of the most fascinating errors of the modern era, and it has sold for an absolutely staggering $2.3 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $2.30 million for a dime that was minted just over 2 decades ago in Philadelphia, a coin that could theoretically still be circulating in commerce today, passing from hand to hand without anyone recognizing its incredible value. And the error that makes this coin so spectacularly valuable is both simple and profound in its implications for collectors and treasure hunters everywhere. So what exactly makes a 2000 P dime worth more than $2 million? The answer lies in what's known as a transitional error, and to understand this, you need to know a bit of context about what was happening at the United States Mint around the year 2000. You see, the mint was undergoing significant changes in composition specifications for various denominations. They were testing new alloys, adjusting production processes, and dealing with the logistical challenges of a new millennium. And in this environment of transition and change, something remarkable happened that created one of the most sought-after error coins in modern numismatics. The specific error we're dealing with involves a 2000 P dime that was struck on a wrong planchet. Specifically, this dime was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or with a composition that wasn't standard for dimes of that era, and the result is a coin that has dramatically different characteristics in terms of weight, appearance, and metal composition compared to normal 2000 P dimes. The Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P Mint mark, struck over 1.8 billion dimes in the year 2000, an absolutely massive production run meant to supply the needs of American commerce as the nation entered a new millennium with great fanfare and celebration. But hidden among those nearly 2 billion coins was a tiny number of errors, mistakes, anomalies that slipped through the quality control systems and made it into circulation or into mint sets, and among those errors, the transitional wrong planchet strikes stand out as the crown jewels, the ultimate prizes that every error coin collector dreams of finding. When we talk about a coin being worth $2.3 million, we're talking about specimens that are in absolutely pristine condition, coins that have been professionally graded at the highest levels, typically MS67 or above, meaning they're essentially flawless with only the most microscopic imperfections visible even under high magnification. And these coins must also be accompanied by ironclad documentation proving their authenticity, their provenance, and the specific nature of their error. The discovery of these 2000 P transitional error dimes created a sensation in the numismatic community because they represented something that wasn't supposed to be possible given the mint's modern quality control systems. How could a planchet meant for a different purpose make it through the sorting systems, through the rim forming processes, through the striking operation, and into finished coin production without being caught and rejected? The answer speaks to both the complexity of modern minting operations and the reality that even with the best systems and the most careful oversight, errors can and will occur, especially during periods of transition when procedures are changing and equipment is being adjusted. The visual characteristics of a 2000p transitional error dime can vary depending on the specific nature of the wrong planchet used. Some examples appear to have unusual coloring or toning. Others have weight discrepancies that can be detected with a precision scale, and the most obvious examples might show differences in how the design elements appear because striking characteristics change depending on the hardness and composition of the planchet being struck. One of the most valuable varieties involves a 2000p dime struck on a planchet with silver composition rather than the standard copper-nickel clad composition. And if you understand the history of American coinage, you'll know why this is so significant. Dimes were made with 90% silver content until 1964, after which the mint switched to the copper-nickel clad composition we know today. So finding a 2000p dime with silver composition is like discovering a ghost from the past. A coin that shouldn't exist according to the official timeline of U.S. coinage composition changes. The metallurgical analysis of these transitional errors has provided fascinating insights into mint operations. Spectroscopy and other testing methods have confirmed that some of these errors were indeed struck on planchets with silver content far exceeding what should have been used in the year 2000, and the theories about how this could have happened range from leftover planchets from earlier experimental programs to mix-ups in the planchet supply chain to deliberate testing of new or old compositions for reasons that were never publicly disclosed. Whatever the explanation, the result is the same. These coins exist, they're genuine mint products, and they're worth fortunes to collectors who understand their significance and their extreme rarity. Auction records for the finest examples of 2000p transitional error dimes show a steady climb in value over the past 2 decades. Early examples that sold in the early 2000s for tens of thousands of dollars have since resold for hundreds of thousands or even millions, and the $2.3 million record was set by a specimen that combined perfect preservation, dramatic error characteristics, and impeccable provenance to create the ultimate trophy coin for a serious collector. The emotional resonance of owning such a coin goes beyond mere financial value. Imagine being able to hold in your hand a piece of monetary history that represents the intersection of old and new. A coin from the year 2000 that somehow embodies the silver coinage of decades past. It's like holding a time capsule, a bridge between eras. And for collectors who are passionate about the story of American coinage, that historical and emotional significance is worth every penny of that $2.3 million price tag. Now, if you're thinking about searching for one of these valuable 2000p dimes yourself, there are some practical realities you need to understand. First, the odds of finding a transitional error like this in pocket change are astronomically small. We're talking about perhaps fewer than 5 verified examples in existence, so while it's theoretically possible that one could still be out there circulating or sitting in someone's coin jar, the likelihood is extremely remote. However, and this is important, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because only a handful have been discovered doesn't mean there aren't more waiting to be found. Mint errors often hide for years or decades before being discovered, especially errors that aren't immediately obvious to the untrained eye. And the year 2000 was only 25 years ago, which means that many of the dimes struck that year are still in circulation or in collections or stored away in drawers and jars around the country. The weight test is your first line of investigation if you suspect you might have a transitional error dime. A normal 2000p clad dime should weigh exactly 2.268 grams, but a dime struck on a silver planchet would weigh noticeably more, around 2.5 grams, because silver is denser than the copper-nickel clad composition. So if you have a precision scale and a 2000p dime that weighs significantly more or less than the standard weight, you should absolutely have it examined by a professional, because you might be sitting on a fortune. The specific gravity test is another method that experts use to determine composition. Specific gravity is the ratio of a substance's density to the density of water, and different metal compositions have different specific gravity values. So by carefully measuring a coin's weight in air and then in water, you can calculate its specific gravity and determine whether the composition matches what it should be for a standard clad dime, or whether it's something unusual like silver. And while this test requires some specialized knowledge and equipment, it's a definitive way to identify compositional anomalies. The story of the 2000p transitional error dimes also highlights the importance of always checking your coins, especially coins from years when significant changes were happening at the mint. Transition years are particularly prone to errors because equipment is being adjusted, procedures are changing, and the potential for mix-ups in planchet supplies or other aspects of production increases dramatically. Beyond the transitional errors, the year 2000p also saw other types of valuable errors, including off-center strikes where the design is dramatically misaligned, double strikes where the coin was struck twice with the dies in different positions, and broad strikes where the coin was struck without the collar die, creating a larger, thinner coin with no rim. And while these errors typically don't reach the multimillion-dollar values of the transitional types, they can still be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars depending on the severity of the error and the condition of the coin. The psychology of error collecting is fascinating because it combines elements of treasure hunting, historical research, and pure luck. Collectors are drawn to errors because each one represents a unique story, a moment in time when something went wrong or unexpectedly right depending on your perspective, and unlike regular coins which can be endlessly duplicated, error coins are inherently unique. Even errors of the same general type will have subtle differences that make each coin individual, and this uniqueness is part of what drives their value. The market dynamics for modern error coins like the 2000p dime are also interesting because unlike ancient or historical coins where the population is fixed and known, modern errors are still being discovered. New finds can emerge at any time, and this element of ongoing discovery keeps the market vibrant and exciting. Every roll of dime someone searches through could potentially contain a treasure. Every estate sale or coin jar passed down through a family could harbor an undiscovered rarity. And this possibility, however remote, keeps collectors and treasure hunters engaged and searching. The verification process for a suspected transitional error is rigorous and necessarily so given the amounts of money involved. When someone submits a coin to PCGS or NGC claiming it's a 2000p transitional error dime, the grading service will subject it to extensive testing including visual examination under magnification, weight measurement, specific gravity testing, metallurgical analysis, and comparison with known authentic examples. And only if the coin passes all these tests will it be authenticated and graded as genuine. The grading itself is a critical factor in value. A 2000p transitional error dime in lower grades like -55 Australian dollars or MS60 might be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But that same error in a grade of MS67 or MS68 could be worth millions, because at those highest grade levels you're dealing with coins that are essentially perfect. And perfect examples of phenomenally rare errors are the ultimate trophy coins that serious collectors and investors compete fiercely to acquire. The provenance of these coins also matters tremendously. Knowing where a coin came from, how it was discovered, and who has owned it over the years adds to its story and can impact its value. A coin with a documented history that traces back to its discovery in a mint set or in circulation has more credibility and often more value than a coin that simply appears on the market with no background information. The social media age has transformed error coin collecting by making it easier than ever for people to share their finds, get preliminary opinions from experts, and learn about what to look for. There are now online communities dedicated specifically to error coins where collectors share photos, discuss authentication techniques, and celebrate new discoveries. And this democratization of knowledge means that more people than ever before are aware of the potential value hiding in their change and are actively looking for errors. However, this also means that the competition to find these rarities has intensified. You're not just competing against a small group of dedicated collectors anymore. You're competing against thousands or even millions of people who are now aware that valuable errors exist and are keeping their eyes open for them. The insurance considerations for owning a multimillion-dollar dime are also worth discussing. If you're fortunate enough to own or discover a 2000p Transitional Error Dime worth $2.3 million, you'll need specialized numismatic insurance to protect your investment. Standard homeowners insurance typically has very low limits for coin collections, often just a few $1,000s, so you'll need to work with an insurance company that specializes in collectibles to get adequate coverage. And you'll need to take appropriate security measures to protect the coin, including potentially storing it in a safe deposit box or a high-security safe and limiting who knows about your ownership of such a valuable item. The potential for fraud and counterfeiting is another unfortunate reality in the world of valuable error coins. Wherever there's money, there are people who will try to cheat the system. Some unscrupulous individuals have attempted to create fake transitional errors by altering genuine 2000p dimes or by fabricating coins using genuine dies and non-standard planchets. But these fakes can typically be detected by experts who know what authentic errors should look like in terms of strike characteristics, surface details, and compositional analysis. This is yet another reason why professional authentication is absolutely essential before buying or selling any coin claimed to be a valuable error. The tax implications of discovering or selling a valuable error coin are also significant. If you find a $2.3 million dime in your change, the IRS considers that to be income and you would theoretically owe taxes on its fair market value. And if you sell the coin for a profit, you'll owe capital gains taxes on the appreciation. So it's important to consult with a tax professional who understands the unique situations that arise in numismatics to ensure you're handling everything correctly and legally. The philosophical question of whether to sell or hold a valuable error coin is one that every lucky finder must grapple with. On one hand, $2.3 million is life-changing money that could pay off debts, buy a house, fund retirement, or provide financial security for generations. On the other hand, you'd be parting with a piece of history, a coin that tells an incredible story and that very few people will ever have the privilege of owning. And some collectors find that the emotional and historical value of keeping such a treasure outweighs even the substantial financial value it represents. The story of 2000p Transitional Error Dimes also serves as a reminder that the world of rare coins is not static. New discoveries are still being made, new records are still being set, and the next great find could happen tomorrow or could be sitting in your pocket right now. The field of numismatics is dynamic and constantly evolving, with new research shedding light on previously unknown varieties and errors, and with market forces driving values up or down based on demand, availability, and broader economic conditions. For those interested in pursuing error coin collecting seriously, education is key. Invest time in learning about different types of errors. Study the minting process to understand how various errors can occur. Join professional organizations like the American Numismatic Association or specialized error coin clubs. Attend coin shows where you can see authentic examples in person and network with dealers and other collectors. And most importantly, develop relationships with reputable dealers who can help you navigate the market and avoid costly mistakes. The authentication services provided by PCGS and NGC are invaluable in this field. Their expert teams have examined hundreds of thousands of error coins over the decades and have developed extensive knowledge about what's genuine and what's not. When you purchase a certified error coin, you're not just buying the coin itself, you're buying the peace of mind that comes with professional authentication and grading. And in a market where authenticity is paramount, this certification can make the difference between a valuable asset and a worthless fake. The historical context of the year 2000 is also worth considering. It was a time of transition in many ways. The new millennium brought with it fears about Y2K computer problems, excitement about the future, and a sense that the world was entering a new era. And in that atmosphere of change and anticipation, it's somehow fitting that the US Mint produced error coins that themselves represented a transition, a blending of old and new that captured the spirit of the time in tangible, metallic form. The 2000p Transitional Error Dimes stand as testament to the reality that even in our modern, technologically advanced age, with sophisticated quality control systems and automated processes, the human element and the possibility of error remain. These coins prove that perfection is elusive, that mistakes happen, and that sometimes those mistakes create something far more valuable than what was originally intended. As we conclude our exploration of these two extraordinary dimes, the 1988D Missing Clad Layer worth up to $6 million and the 2000p Transitional Error worth $2.3 million. The overarching message should be clear. Never underestimate the potential value of the coins passing through your hands every single day. What looks like ordinary pocket change could be an extraordinary treasure that changes your life forever. And the only way to find these treasures is to look, really look at your coins, weigh them when something seems off, research what you find, and never assume that just because a coin is recent or common in general circulation, that it couldn't be hiding a valuable error that makes it worth a fortune. The world of error coins is filled with amazing stories of ordinary people who made extraordinary discoveries. From the retired teacher who found a valuable error in a roll of dimes from her bank to the restaurant owner who noticed an unusual coin in his till and ended up selling it for enough to retire comfortably. These stories prove that lightning can strike anyone, and the next story could be yours if you're observant, knowledgeable, and just a little bit lucky. So the next time you're handed change at a store, or the next time you're sorting through a jar of coins at home, take an extra moment to examine those dimes, check the dates, look at the colors and surfaces, feel the weight, and remember that you could be holding $1 million treasure that's been hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize its true value. And now that you have that knowledge, now that you know what's possible, you have the power to be that person who makes the discovery of a lifetime. Keep searching, keep learning, keep examining every coin that passes through your hands, because somewhere out there, in someone's change, in someone's coin jar, in someone's drawer, there are more of these valuable error dimes waiting to be discovered. And there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the one to find the next great treasure. So get out there, start looking, and who knows, maybe the next video on this channel will be featuring your discovery and your story of how a simple dime changed your life forever. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hub. If you enjoyed this deep dive into these extraordinary valuable dimes, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss another treasure hunting opportunity, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to start checking your dimes more carefully after watching this video. And remember, fortune favors the observant. So keep your eyes open and happy hunting.